All right, here we go on this Thursday afternoon. Welcome, Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports on YouTube. Jack McKenzie runs the mothership. Paul Catalina is to my left. Craig Smoak to my right. I'm David Smoak, and here we go with the lineup. It's pretty filled up. We're going to check in with John Wilner. He covers the Pac-12, and he'll join us today at 3:45. National writer Max Olson joins us at 4, theathletic.com, and Mickey Spagnola, DallasCowboys.com at 4:30. Craig's off the radar after that. Paul's top 5 at 5:55. And tomorrow we're going to check in with Boise State, Oklahoma State, and a couple of other guests and segments as well, as we will be on the road with high school football at Panther Stadium just in the south part of Waco. All right, so, Realignment, of course, took center stage and has, and what helped grow and develop our audience with you and vice versa back at the end of July. And then now then you had the Alliance, the Pac-12, the ACC, the Big Ten, and something about that in a second. And then you had the Big 12 bringing in four. And now Dennis Dodd, CBS Sports, on the AAC, which is now looking around at like, okay, hey, who do we have left targeting the Mountain West? And what does that mean for future teams that might be a part of or not college football's playoff? So that's one of the stories we'll look at today. So what's he actually saying? Is that this is no different than whatever you react, you lose, you gain, right?
Basically saying that they've got targets. The American has people targeted that they want to bring into the conference. He mentioned 4 to 5 teams, and one of them is of note because it's a team that was heavily rumored, with the whole Big 12 expansion. And given that I don't think the Big 12's done expanding, at least for right now, I think that they are, but I think that the long-term goal is, hey, we're still very much looking, and it's a matter of just like when, not if, we're going to do this. Given that, I think one of these is particularly interesting because it could be a no-brainer team for the Big 12 to add in the next round, and that would be Boise State, who does not want to be where they have been, and they are looking for newer pastures, greener pastures, and the American would be a step up. But at the same time, the Big 12 might be there as well eventually, so that would be interesting to see how that would work. But Boise State was one of those teams mentioned. Air Force was one of those teams mentioned. UAB was mentioned. San Diego State and Colorado State as teams that could be the focus of the American as they look at their next round of realignment. And we brought up Colorado State, or had people out there bring up Colorado State. We had people bring up San Diego State. Mm-hmm. We had people bring up Boise State. We had people bring up the service academies throughout that deal. We even had, it wasn't much, but UAB was mentioned a couple of times because of that Birmingham market. So those would all seem to be good additions for the American Conference if they were able to pull it off. But, that's what the rumor is right now.
Yeah, none of these schools, all the schools are in the Mountain West except for UAB, which is in Conference USA. They're looking to the Mountain West, and they already go from Philadelphia down to Tampa and over to Dallas. So this would make the reach of the American much, much larger as far as their geographic area. So maybe that's the next move, is cover as much actual land mass as you can.
It's interesting, and that will be fun to see how that works. BJ Rains covers Boise State. He'll join us tomorrow. They play Oklahoma State this weekend, and we'll also hear from Robert Allen, the sideline reporter for Oklahoma State. They'll be a part of the show. So BJ Rains on tomorrow for not only this story, but also future Big 12 expansion if there's a Chapter 2 and a game that matters with Oklahoma State.
I have to tell you, Oklahoma State, they're in an interesting spot right now. Spencer Sanders just came back, but they've had little to no run game. They've got young but talented receivers, but just not anybody that's like on the level of what they've had. They always had like a guy at wide receiver. I mean, going back to like the early 2000s and Des Bryant, there's always like a dude. And just recently it was
Tylan Wallace?
Yeah, Tylan Wallace. I mean, they always have a dude, and they don't really have that just yet. Their offensive line's okay. Defense is good, but like I'm sitting there looking at the Big 12 last night, and half the league's got a quarterback controversy now. Half the league has a quarterback controversy, and we're in week 3.
Yeah,
you've got Texas. You've got obviously Iowa State now has a quarterback controversy. West Virginia's got a quarterback controversy, and there's one more that I'm not thinking of. But those 3, and there is a fourth. But yeah, it's very interesting kind of how that's all shaken out. But yeah, it'll be interesting to talk Oklahoma State because they're in a weird spot right now.
Well, they'll be in Boise. They leave tomorrow morning. Robert Allen joins us around 5 o'clock after they have their walkthrough